What? Greetings, fellow Watford fans. Omar here, and it's time for another edition of the Orns 10-minute take. And well, I just was so disgusted with these last two games, I just didn't even have, quite frankly, the stomach to do any 10-minute takes on Blackburn. Nor on Millwall as well, although I thought Watford played better against Millwall than they did against Blackburn. Oh dear. But today, a different story as I decided to come out of my mental health break from this team will drive you crazy, believe me. Um, this is a team we love nonetheless, don't we, of Watford Football Club? But they will drive you mad sometimes. They really will. But on this occasion, fellow Watford supporter, I decided, yeah, look, it's time to get back to this and focus on this because Watford today came up against a Hull City side high on confidence following their 3-1 victory over Southampton the last time out. Ollie McBurney scored, I think, two of the goals on that day, and he looked a threat again today for the visitors as they took on a Watford side low on confidence, having lost their last two games and looking very, very perilously close to the relegation zone. Look, at this time of year, after the first six games before this one, I don't pay any attention really to the table. You really have to start looking at the table once we get to the aftermath of game 10 of the season. That's when the table begins to take shape. And Watford, though, even after six games, were not being liked by many of the Watford supporters. Well, not so much Watford, but the manager, Paolo Pezzolano, who I've actually taken to defending here the last few games, even though he has been really abject with the first team starting lineup, which I don't understand. And I didn't understand it again today with the 3-5-2 again that he stuck to. Stubborn as he is, he decided to put the three centre backs in the middle of the park there for 3-5-2. You had Pollock on one side, you had on the other side another defender in the middle. You had Kevin. It was Max Lane who was on the right side and Kevin in the middle. And then you had the 5-3 midfielders backed by the two wing backs. On one side, it was Jeremy Ngagi on the left side this time, and on the right side, it was the other Jeremy Petrie. And then in the middle, of course, you have those three midfielders anchored by the likes of a loser. Well, he was really the one that was moving around and taking a lot more initiative in that midfield. And then, of course, you had your two up top, Iran Kunda and Semedo. So that's the lineup again for Watford, despite what happened the other day at Millwall. Where Millwall, I think, look, they won the game, but Watford, were the busiest side in the second half. Just didn't do enough against Millwall. Did not do enough against Blackburn, as we know. There's nothing to say about the game against Blackburn on Sir Elton John's day with the kit, which they probably will not wear again this season. And with Sir Elton in attendance, the lads laid an egg, a big fat goose egg at the Vic. So Watford come into this game. They came into this game today against Hull, having not scored in their last two matches in succession, both 1-0 defeats. And this was a match that Watford really needed to get things right in. A lot of the fans were calling for Pezzo's job. Again, I was prepared, and I did say a few days ago that Watford had to win this game and that I was prepared to give the manager until the international break coming up in early October to get things right. And if he didn't get things right there, if the results didn't pick up from the game after Millwall to the All-Star, the international break, excuse me, then I could have no complaint if Gino pulls the trigger and says adios. Well, that is going to be delayed now, at least after this game, because Watford, despite going 1-0 down in the first half through Ollie McBurney, and the 3-5-2 formation was a large reason why that happened. Watford began to show character second half. The McBurney goal in the first half came courtesy of some poor defending, but again, it was the 3-5-2 because you're stretched at 3-5-2 at the back. You don't have any width, and so that allows a lot of space down the channels for the opposing team to operate in, and it makes it harder for defenses to recover, and so they have a lot more ground to make up in a counter-attacking move by the away side in this case. And you had a defender trying to come and close down the pass from for Drame, who put the ball in really unimpeded, no defensive pressure on him. and the ball found Ollie McBurney in acres of space. It was an easy goal for him. He won't score an easier goal this season in the Championship. His fourth of the season to give Hull the 1-0 lead. And from there, Watford heads dropped. Even though Watford were livelier in this game to start with, even though Watford had many more opportunities and the possession I think they had in the first half, they didn't do anything with it, just like Millwall. Didn't do anything with it. But in this game, once the Watford team went down 1-0, the heads dropped. And you could see it, you could feel it. If you were at the Vic as a Watford fan, you saw it and felt it, and you gave your overwhelming response of boo. Boo! Because they deserved that at halftime. So did the manager. And I think, I dare say, much of the booing was going really to the manager more than it was perhaps to the Watford team itself. The manager got it wrong in the first half with the lineup, and obviously things just did not work for the Watford side in the first half, but the character showed in the second. A tweak here and a tweak there in midfield, Mendy dropping back a little bit, Loser going up further, and becoming much more of an attacking midfielder, really into the thick of things, basically a number 10 and beyond that, with where he was being put on the pitch. And lo and behold, the results turned around right away, almost right away, because it just took 15 minutes for those changes to take effect. And after Jeremy Ngake had been subbed off literally after the goal had been scored, by the way, and brought on in the place of his place was Caleb Wiley, who I thought was decent in the game. Watford had just scored. It was a really good goal, and Semedo came back, dropped back, did some hold-up play that was very effective for his number. Again, number 18 on the day, Semedo, the striker. I thought he was very effective in the game. He held the ball, allowed Loser to come in, waited for Loser's run, timed the run for Loser perfectly, and then the pass came straight into Loser. It was a really good piece of work from Semedo. You cannot overlook the hold-up play that Semedo had, especially in that second half. He laid on the ball for Loser, who pounced and just drove the ball home low past the goalkeeper's left-hand post and into the back of the net for a priceless and very important Watford equaliser on the stroke of the hour mark at 60 minutes, 1-1 then, in game on. From there, the Hull energy flagged. And for me, Hull didn't do a whole lot in this game, but they just took more opportunities to score than Watford did in that first half, obviously, because they got the 1-0 lead at half time. But Watford began to out energy and outpace Hull in the second half. They moved the ball faster, they moved the ball quicker, they moved the pitch faster, and they recovered faster. They were the fitter side in the second half. For some reason, and I know Hull's an older team than Watford are because Watford's team is largely young players, but Hull looked very old in that second half. The energy levels flagged. You could see it. The game was there to be had. And I was sitting there wondering, what is our manager going to do to affect the balance of this game? I wanted him to bring Barr on more directly. He waited later to bring Barr on the pitch. But what happened is it was the tweak that was happening earlier in that second half definitely paid dividends with the goal from Loser. And at 1-1, it was game on in anyone's game. The game was there for Watford. Hull's legs tired. They didn't have the same kind of energy and discipline in the first half that they had in the first half. And so it was just a matter of time before there was going to be a second Watford goal. Hull made the triple substitutions. I don't think it had a lot of effect for Hull, although they did have a couple of chances late on, including a shot from point blank range that Nathan Baxter in the Watford goal saved, although it was an offside anyway. The bottom line here is I thought Hull looked a very tired team for much of this game. And Hull supporters, if you're coming across this video, don't you agree that your side looked really gassed in that second half? And I don't care how old your team is, they should not be gassed like that after 60 odd minutes. I mean, really, I mean that's for something that Hull fans have to consider. But the bottom line is that Watford had the energy and had the persistence in that second half. And look, they came up and found a way to make this thing happen. And they kept pushing. They had a number of opportunities. There was a shot saved off the line by a Hull player. It should have gone in for 2-1 at that point, and then it was just a matter of time then that Watford would find that game, that go-ahead goal, that game winner, easy for me to say, as Semedo who turned provider in for the first goal that loser scored to make it 1-1, ended up being the recipient. And it was loser turning provider for Semedo in the 78th minute, as Semedo's header off of the cross in from loser made it 2-1. Watford would lead there. The game-winning goal scored by Vivaldo Semedo, his first for his new club. It was really good to see him get that goal because he richly deserved it for all the work he had done in this game. Gave Watford the win with his goal. Really good crossing from loser. Great header in from Semedo. And what I loved about Semedo today is that he used his size and used his height advantage and used his physicality to get the goal in the second goal. And then, of course, used that same physicality earlier in his hold-up play to turn provider for Loser's goal. So, Semedo for me, along with Loser, they were both the joint YouOrns Watford FC man of the match because they both contributed mightily in that second half to Watford's fortunes. They assisted on each other's goals. Look, those two players were the key reason why Watford won this game today. And in the first half, of course, Iran Kunda did a lot of leg work. He was the only Watford player that had anything going in a first half where Watford tried, they huffed and puffed, but just didn't do enough. Again, it was like the Millwall game. In fact, the first half of the Watford game today was very similar to the second half of the Millwall game on Monday night. And Watford moved the ball a bit quicker than they did against Millwall in that first half of that whole game. And in the first half of this game, they moved the ball a lot quicker, but they moved the ball even faster second half. So for me, Watford performed better second half of this game against Hull, had much more energy, much more speed, and the crosses were very good today. There were no complaints from me about Watford's dead ball crosses or their set pieces. I thought the few set pieces that we had, I thought we made the most of them. They were much improved than what we've seen through a lot of this season so far. Again, the sample size is small. Again, let me repeat this. The sample size is small. And I understand that there are lots of fellow Watford supporters who've had enough of this manager. And today, even a lot of the Watford supporters who've had enough of their manager won't necessarily have stopped calling for him to go. I'm not surprised if that happens. And so far, I've still seen a bit of that. But this win gives Pezzo some time. When he was asked in his post-match press conference whether or not he felt pressure, he said, well, football is not pressure. There's no pressure in football. And he started to reference the problems in the world. People have lots of problems. There's lots of things going on in the world. That's pressure. There's no pressure in football. So that was his answer, ever the philosopher there with that answer. But realistically speaking, while he's right about the fact that there's bigger problems in the world than Watford FC struggling in their first 7 games, he's got to admit that in football, the hot seat, and this is the hottest of hot seats at Vicarage Road, is a massive pressure cooker. I mean, Pezzo's just going, oh, no pressure. You got more than half the fan base that wants you out, mate. I'm sitting here saying I don't want him out just yet. No, I'm going to hold my horses on any of that because again, I give him to the next international break, which is in beginning of October. There's only a week and a half or so away. I think it's October the 4th, October the 6th, whatever the international break is. So that's only 2 more games. They've got the game against Portsmouth next. It's coming up Wednesday at Fratton Park. And then they got the game at the weekend, a weekend from now, which is going to be home against Oxford. So those are the 2 games. I give him those 2 more games, and I think he's going to be able to get to the international break without any concern about his job. Now, I'm saying that now, before those 2 games. I'm putting myself out there and saying that I think he's going to get through these next 2 games, and I do think that Watford will win at least one of these next 2 games. And I think really, for him to feel secure in that position, Watford have to go unbeaten. And I think if they can get a win at Portsmouth, and if they can get a win against Oxford, they're going to go a long way toward shoring up any anxiety from some of the Watford fans. There will always be some of us as Watford supporters who are not going to be satisfied with this manager. As I've said in areas before in other fora, a lot of the animosity, I suspect some of the animosity around Pezzolano is not only because they don't like him and maybe they don't like the fact that he doesn't speak English. And again, I don't look. I am very much against all the potential xenophobia and anti-overseas situation. I understand there are Watford supporters who do that. Some of them, some of us do that, right? But yes, would it be nice if he spoke English? Yes, it would. But I don't count that as a reason why I don't like him. I mean, I actually do like the manager. I've been heavily critical of the manager for the way he starts these games. His lineups, to me, don't make a lot of sense. It looks like he's still trying to find what he's looking for and he's not sure. Again, it's still 7 games. It's not 27 games, and he wouldn't be here if he was doing this for 27 games, I can assure you. If he was doing what he was doing the first 6 games, he would not be here now. I say give the man a chance till the next international break. Render your verdict then unto Caesar, if you will, right? And then if he doesn't get the, if you do, if you're not happy with him after 9 games in or 10 games in, fair enough, you know. But every fan has a right to his or her opinion, their opinion. And in my case, I'm giving, as I said after the Millwall match on X, I'm prepared to give him a chance. I am still, you know. If he continues to do this with a win today, we want a better first half, of course, as well. But if he is prepared and if he does get results here with another win against Portsmouth and perhaps follow that up with another win, or at least pick up points against Portsmouth and pick up points here, you go into that international break with a bit more about you. Watford were 3 unbeaten before they lost these last 2 games. Watford showed a lot of character in this game. You've got to look at that, even though character does not show up in the table. There's no column in the table for character, right? There's none of that. But character was showed today coming from behind. Watford showed character in the game against Southampton a few weeks ago, coming from behind twice in that match. They showed a lot of character against Swansea, not to buckle in that game, having taken the lead that they enjoyed for a long time in that game. And when they conceded in that game, they didn't buckle in a place that was very difficult to win in. You got to factor those things in. Those intangibles for me make a big difference. And that's one of the reasons why I actually support the manager to a degree here, because the team has shown character under him. And that's not just organically made in the team itself. Character is also instilled by the manager. So you cannot divorce the manager from that. As much as Watford fans and many of us do not want this manager here, I'm not one of those people, but a lot of us don't want him here. I can understand that because again, there is still a lack of identity about this side, even today. And we saw a bit more of that identity take shape and take hold in the second half of this match. But there needs to be an identity built from the start. And with a new manager and a largely new player base and squad, that's still going to take some time. I understand where Watford supporters are coming from because, quite frankly, with all the expectations that we had with this Watford side, given the great summer window that we had here, and given the owner's expectations, um, you can't fault fans for wanting this guy run out on a rail, especially after the way Clevis was sacked and all the rest of it, and him being sacked. Look, I can understand, so there's a lot of demands. The fans have an absolute right to demand more and demand better. I would just say be a little bit more patient. If you can stick with the man for 2 more games, two, just two more games, right? Then see where you are with him, right? And then from there, if you don't want him here, I can understand that. I can completely understand. But I'm willing to give him the 2 more games, and I was willing to give him the 3 more games after the Millwall match. And today he's bought himself a little bit of time with some of the Watford supporters. I don't think Gino's going to sack him in these next 2 games, no matter what the result. Although I shouldn't say that because, as I say, if there is a time to be sacked, it's going to be at the international break. So even if he gets a result in one of these next 2 games, that doesn't necessarily secure his job, does it? With Gino, anything can happen. But he got the win today against Hull. Very important win. We'll see what happens at Portsmouth on Wednesday night. Remember, I want to remind you of this tomorrow, September the 28th, if you're watching this before then, Sunday, September 28th, 2025, I will be announcing, I should be saying, I will be doing a live drawing on Substack video and here on YouTube exclusively, those 2 places, because it's of all the Substack subscribers to YouOrns WFC on Substack. That's youornswfc, the number one, .substack.com. If you subscribe to that particular link, click on the link and subscribe. Before I do my drawing on September the 28th, the Sunday, at 2:30 p.m. UK time, if you subscribe there, you have a chance to be put into the hat for that drawing that I'm going to do live on video on Substack tomorrow, September the 28th, 2025 at 2:30 p.m. UK time. So please make sure you've subscribed to Substack. YouOrns on Substack. That would be youornswfc.substack.com. If you're a Watford supporter, you will want to subscribe to that. Why? Because I'm giving away an Iran Kunda home shirt tomorrow, the 28th of September 2025. So only the people who have a chance to win it, the people who will have a chance are the ones who subscribe to YouOrns WFC on Substack. So please, 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 whatever you do, make sure you do subscribe to have a chance to win the one jersey that I'm giving away tomorrow. That's the Iran Kunda home jersey, Watford FC. So please remember, subscribe now. YouOrns WFC, the number one, .substack.com. Do that now. And again, the giveaway will be 2:30 p.m. tomorrow, the 28th of September 2025, 2:30 p.m. UK time. This has been the YouOrns 10-minute take.